Hey everyone, welcome to another video. So today I'm at the Avenue Tennis Club with our very own head stringer, Paul Skipp. Now, Paul runs this amazing little pro shop, but actually he's pretty famous too. He's just got back from the Australian Open as one of the stringing team. Paul's had many years of stringing experience. How many years have you been stringing for, Paul?
Just over 33 years.
33 years, and he's actually the head stringer of Wimbledon, as well as previously being a stringer at the Roland Garros event and plenty of other events, including Davis Cup. So a wealth of knowledge, and in today's video, we're going to be talking to him about the Australian Open and answering some of your questions. So let's go. So a big thanks to all of you that sent in questions on here and over on Instagram. We're going to go through a few now. So Paul, you've been stringing at Wimbledon for a number of years. How many is it at the moment?
We're up to about 18 years now. 18
years. And how does stringing at the Australian Open compare to stringing at Wimbledon?
Well, the Australian Open is known as the Happy Slam. It's got a great atmosphere. It's almost like a holiday with the tennis tournament thrown in. It's completely different from Wimbledon. Wimbledon's very British, very prim and proper, very regimented, very organised. I'm not saying the Australian isn't organised. It's just a different atmosphere. It's really nice to be there. I'd definitely recommend people going if they get the chance. As for the actual stringing side, we're stringing probably about another 1,000 or so more at the Australian Open than at Wimbledon, and that's mainly down to the number of rackets obviously coming in, but the different surface, the temperature, etc.
Amazing. So do you think that's one of the reasons is down to the length of rally, or would you say it's more to do with the humidity and temperature?
A little bit of both. Certainly the rallies are longer at the Australian Open, so they're hitting more balls, they want fresher strings more often. The rallies at Wimbledon are generally shorter, and they want to get the points done quickly, and obviously it's should be a little bit of a faster surface, so control is very, very important.
Interesting. So one of the next questions we had was actually from the Tennis Brothers, and the question was, what was the highest and the lowest tension that you strung at the Aussie Open?
So the highest tension we had at the Australian Open was 88 pounds, which is about 40 kilos. That's by a female doubles player. And then the lowest we had was about 11.5 kilos, and that was for Adrian Mannarino. He's known for having his very low tensions, so some good extremes there. Most players are sitting in between there, roughly halfway between there, so you're probably looking at about 23, 24 kilos. That's probably about the average.
Wow. So if I compare kilos to pounds, when you're talking about 11 kilos for Mannarino, what's that in pounds?
That's approximately 25 pounds. 25
pounds. So just to put into perspective, you're stringing my racket currently at 52 pounds.
That's correct.
Which is a tension that I tend to use. And 88 pounds, you say, was the female doubles player.
That's correct.
What sort of game style would a player have to require such a high tension?
So if I start by saying, so with Adrian Mannarino, he wants to use the player's, his opponent's power or direction. He's got a very sort of slow swing, so he uses the opponent's speed a lot more. Whereas for the doubles players, she just wants a nice solid, as solid as you're going to get, string bed, so it's just going to be all about that control. And maybe a new shoulder as well.
Interesting. I'm always amazed to hear at the different ends of the spectrum, because I'm assuming most people are slightly more normal in that kind of remit between 40 and 60 pounds overall. Yeah,
I would say probably more towards the, let's say, about 42 to 53, 54 pounds,
right? Something
about that sort of. That's where I'd say the biggest range is going to be.
Interesting. So the next question comes from Fox Froze over on YouTube, and the question was, what was the most common string that you strung with at the Aussie Open?
So the most common strings we see are usually Luxton Alu Power or Baba RPM Blast. They're probably the most two common. I would think I've probably strung out of those, strung more Alu Power than anything.
Cool. And how many strings or how many rackets were you stringing per day on average if you were looking at the first week of the event?
We were probably doing somewhere in these about 25, 30 rackets, so it's not too bad. It's because we have plenty of staff there. There are about 20 stringers, so it's nice, easy to just balance things out and not be too overstressed sometimes. But I think my biggest day was probably around about 35, maybe 40.
Yeah.
But not too many rounds.
Big. And how are the fingers after a day of 40 rackets? Are they okay?
They would have been bedded in by then, so it wouldn't have been too bad. But I'm still suffering a little bit now, funnily enough.
Now, a question a few people have asked is with regards to string setups. So are most players tending to use one string in their rackets, or are they using two strings, i.e. a hybrid?
I would say it's probably about a 50-50 split between just a single type of string and some form of hybrid. What we're seeing more now, the trend seems to be more towards hybrids, but with two different polyester strings. In the past it would have been more sort of a polyester and a natural gut, or a multi-filament, something like that. Whereas I think players are looking to try and get the best of both worlds out of certain polyesters, and some of the polyesters are getting softer, so they work quite well in a hybrid. So if we take something like Emma Raducanu, she's got a Luxon Power Rough in the mains and the softer Luxon element in the crosses, so that will obviously make it just a little bit more comfortable on that string bed.
Yeah, nice, really interesting. So this question is one of my favourite questions. Was there a memorable moment from the event, or was there a memorable player to string for you?
I think I've got to go put it down to stringing for Ashley Barty. I strung the last few rounds for her, and obviously it's been a number of years since an Australian lady won the Australian title, so sort of to do string for her for the last couple of rounds, and particularly for the final, and for her to get the win, I think that's, you know, that's definitely something which sets even above just a normal Grand Slam winner.
Incredible. Is this your first Grand Slam title as a stringer?
No, I've strung for a couple of others in both doubles and women's singles. Not yet a male single player, but I've certainly strung for a female.
But you strung a few of Andy Murray's rackets at the Aussie Open this year?
Yes, so while he was based in Melbourne, I was stringing some of his rackets as well. So while he didn't win a Grand Slam with me, he's certainly a Grand Slam champion.
Absolutely, amazing. So another question we had was about pre-stretch. Now, I understand that some players request the strings to be stretched before you put them into the racket. If you could kind of explain very briefly what pre-stretch is and how you cope with that in a busy environment like the Australian Open.
So, yeah, as you've said, pre-stretch is basically stretching it above the reference tension, the tension the player actually wants. So if he was looking at, say, 50 pounds and they would like a pre-stretch on that, normally we'd be doing it for, let's say, up to 55 pounds, and then it drops and it goes to 50. We do that on the machine, so the machine automatically is set up. We set it up to 10% is the usual amount. So the machine will pull to 55 and then it will relax and then it will pull to 50. And that will give a slightly stiffer feel to the string bed, and potentially take out some of the tension loss, the initial tension loss. So it may hold tension a little bit better.
So the last two questions, Paul, were from me. The first one was about stringing rackets on court. So you often see stewards running onto court, or it might even be one of the stringing team, I'm not sure. They come on and grab a racket and take it off for a restring. Do you do many of those?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Someone will, a player will send a racket off. They need it done during the match for whatever they think, whether it be they break a string, whether they want a different tension, whether it's just psychological for themselves. They like to do that. Yeah, we were involved with those. I did quite a few myself. Again, I was stringing for Danielle Collins, so even during her matches leading up to the final, I was stringing some on-court rackets for her. And we sort of timed it. By the time it came left from the court, got to me, was strung and left, we were looking at about 16 minutes. So that's fully strung and stenciled, ready for the player to use. Wow,
that's incredible speed. And one last question. So I saw one of your posts online. It was actually just before the ladies' final, and you posted a picture of all of the rackets that you strung for that final. You strung both players' rackets, Danielle Collins and Ash Barty. And Ash Barty had 6 rackets. Is that the standard amount of rackets for players on the tour?
It isn't. I think you're looking more like the Danielle Collins type, so maybe 3 to start with, maybe 1 extra one after their practice, and maybe 1 during the match. Ash normally has somewhere about 4 or 6, so she's a little bit more, but obviously she's a little bit conscious on making sure she's always got her equipment ready to go when she needs. And without double checking the video match, it could well be that while she was down in that second set, she had to change her racket and freshened it up, and then obviously pulled it back again.
Yeah, and out of interest, I know that some players like to have different tensions in their selection of rackets in their bag. would a player like Ash Barty have one set tension for all of those 6 rackets, or would there be a mixture?
Yeah, Ash's were all exactly the same.
Yeah.
No different than hers, but I was stringing for certainly one other player. He was having a large number of rackets, around 6 or 7 for the match, and he was having different tensions, varying by about half a kilo, which is about a pound difference between the two. Temperature change, obviously, in Australia can, while it is hot, it can vary very quickly, and they find that if it suddenly drops during a long match, they need to go for a different tension.
Yeah, amazing. So a massive thank you for your time, Paul. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, and if you've got any further questions, leave a comment below. I'll pass it on to Paul and hopefully he'll get back to you. If you want to give him a follow over on Instagram, you can do so through the link I'll put on the screen just here. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you in next week's video.